April the 16th, 2025. Guys, you're looking at an update on the real-time solar wind chart. It's got a lot of information other than that on it. This is coming from our Discover satellite. Now, there's an obvious, very big difference on this chart than what you normally see, and that is this opening right here in our shields. And we went from what they thought would be a G2 magnetic storm, now is a G3, and it's expected to go to a G4. That means a lot of the U.S. tonight is going to see some auroras, probably down into the mid-latitudes, past Indiana, maybe even further. We've seen this before. We've seen them to where I've had comments come in from Alabama where they saw some of these last year. But right now, this storm is affecting a lot of people. It affects your heart, your everything, dizziness. It can affect the pressure on your eyes. It's a tremendous, if you're sensitive to this type of event, guys, it gets older with age too, and especially if you have certain type of cervical or injuries that causes nerve damage, it can really affect you. But right now, this is one of the longest standing and widest openings that I've seen in quite a while. We are looking at a one-day chart. Let's switch this to 3 days just to kind of give you an idea. We've done this earlier. And here we've been cruising around for 3 days. A little bit of dip here and there, some openings from CMEs. And you have a rotating current sheath that's like waves that come off the sun, but it's rotating and it will rise, and just like a sine wave or an ocean wave, you have a peak and a trough. But right now we're dealing with incoming CMEs, and they started right here yesterday. But something in the angle of the attack, and it could be, if you remember in the video earlier, I showed there's a very large coronal opening turning towards our planet. That may be what is happening here, because if you look below this, this is your opening. This tells you when it gets far below zero, and you're down very close to 20 in some of these dips now, or minus 20, that there's something that you definitely have an opening in the shields. Something is causing it. Now, in the blue and pink, this is the angle that the solar wind is coming in towards the Earth. And why would it change, guys? Well, one reason is that rotating sheath, like the waves. Another reason, if the sun is so large, if you have an explosion on the bottom of the sun that is somewhat Earth-facing, then it would approach the Earth at a slightly different angle than something on top of the sun. You see what I'm saying? They're going to hit the Earth not at the same angle, simply because the solar wind is so large, because the sun is so large. But it does hit our Earth at different angles. See the dip right here. We'll go back to the one-day chart in just a moment. But let's just go out to 7 days and see if we can see a pretty big difference. And you can. You can see some dips in here. But right now we're in a wide open and very long session with this geomagnetic storm. I haven't seen this really going back until maybe once last year, but this thing is, it's strange in a way, but we know the sun is going to continue to increase in energy, and that something's going to happen. Revelation tells us, and men are going to be scorched after the fourth angel pours his vial out upon the sun. When will that happen? Will it be an immediate thing? Will it be a slow progress in intensity? But what we will notice whenever that occurs, guys, is this type of information. Now, let's just go out a little further. Now, going back, this is 30 days, and you can see where we have some drops and some openings in our shield, different coronal mass ejections, solar flares, things like that. And through this area, these purple lines indicate it. But notice how long and wide and smooth this opening is. You didn't see that anywhere else. You had a lot of up and down troughs and peaks throughout that. It was smaller openings. Right now, we're still in a very wide open situation. And solar wind is dropping. That usually indicates the temperature is going to drop, but that's not the indication here. Let's go back to the one-day chart. It'll be a little more definitive in what we're talking about there. Again, going 1 day now, our solar wind speed peaked out around 6, right in here was 651. That's kilometers per second, well over 1,000,000 miles per hour. Now it's starting to steady and decline. And normally, when you see the decline in the speed, the temperature will decline. It's kind of, you can see it here as the speed starting to drop, the temperature starting to drop. But suddenly, with this wide opening continuing to bombard us, it's showing that there's a stream coming from the sun that's increasing in temperature. What's that going to do? Make it hotter here on the particles that push into our atmosphere and make it to the surface of our planet are going to be a little bit hotter. You're going to notice it with your eyes, the pressure there, things like that, and all of the other things, the heart arrhythmias and dizziness, headaches, tiredness, lack of breath that we've been talking about. Again, going back to problems with your neck. There's a lot more going on, guys. I hope you got the link in the comments from the earlier video today, because instead of broadcasting a 17-minute video, I just linked to it. But that fella there in Fort Myers has a lot of videos on YouTube that talk about a lot of the problems, guys, that we've been seeing, especially during these type of events like this. But also, it doesn't just happen then, it just intensifies. So if you're suffering from it, pay attention to those videos. They're coming out, again, that's the Wellness Center down in Fort Myers, Florida. But look at the link in the video before this at the top. It's pinned. Now, again, with your temperature going down, going up, with the speed going down, that's a little off base also. What are we seeing? Is this going to continue? Check this out. Is that opening going to continue while we see that rotating mass opening on the sun called a coronal hole? We don't know yet, but what this study that you're looking at right now, is how we will be able to determine a long-term event like we're seeing now that continues. That's going to be very interesting. So, guys, go to our website, look at spaceweather.com, scroll down on the top left, you'll see where it says solar wind speed. And it has, you can make a choice of ACE, that satellite, or the Discover satellite. They both have the same information, presented slightly different, but they do give you a good comparison between two satellites of incoming solar data that's maybe 45 minutes from striking our planet, depending on the speed of the blast. But right now, guys, even at the speed we're at, 487, 488 right now, kilometers per second, let's just convert that to miles per hour. Then you can go back, we'll look at, let's see one of the peaks, 651, we'll use that also. Now, you can take the KMS that you get from the data from both satellites and convert it, and just type in checkyourmath.com or convert KMS to MPH, speed velocity. But it's 650 KMS last night. We were at 1,454,000 miles per hour. Now let's go back to what we're seeing now. But again, this is unfathomable to the human mind. Took a quick look back. We're at 488 KMS. That's 1,091,624 miles per hour. Think about that, guys. You're still over 1,000,000 miles per hour. You don't think that's a bombardment? That's why it gets so intense. All the effects. We have an electric universe. Your body is electric. Kind of, I guess you would, hydroelectric, moisture, electrical signals coming from your brain, telling the rest of your body what to do. And guys, I'm learning more and more about the damage to your neck and how it affects everything. So read some of those or watch some of those videos. And I'll go ahead and put that one back into this, the comments of this video. But if you go there, subscribe to that channel, because there's so much information and so many different videos, all relating to the same subject, but the different aspects of it, the dizziness, the blurriness, different things that you can do. But it is amazing, but it's also, just to warn you, some of it's scary on what is happening to your neck, your spinal column, that causes some of this. And one of the smartest men I know is a neurologist, and he did the electrical test last year, maybe 6 months ago, and where they shock you, your arms and legs, and then they test the results, make sure your nerves signals in the past are getting from your brain everywhere. And we had a good conversation. He looked me out and he said, whatever you do, you know, I'm getting on up in age, do not let them do surgery on your neck. He was very, very serious. And so with the doctor that I'm talking about, it's not a surgery and per se, it's an injection in helping build back the strength or the space in the vertebrae and get them back off the nerve somewhat. So it would be the least invasive type cure. Now, I do know that here in Mississippi, I found out, talked to the hospital today, that Medicare is covered. Down in Florida, where that video is coming from, insurance doesn't cover it, or they don't use an insurance coverage, but it is very expensive, just $4,000 to walk in and for them to do the initial test for the analysis of what they're going to do next. $4,000 up front. So if you got your own insurance, there are other doctors, like I said, here in Jackson, Mississippi, that will look at you and diagnose you and treat you. Of course, there's always a difference in doctors. You know that. So make sure you use very good references. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I'll know something in a few weeks if it's going to be the injections or whatever. Something's got to be done. Definitely take the pressure off your heart. What I just want to go back and say, though, it's way more than your heart when you're dealing with, guys, nerve damage. It even compresses the veins enough to where when you rest, and I was watching it today, and there's fluid that drains from behind your eyes, from your ears, sinuses, and your brain that cleans you out when you're at rest, even if it's a 10 or 15-minute power nap. But if you're waking up, you're not rested, you don't feel like you've rested, and you're just same old thing, another day of pain and all that, that can be because of one of the symptoms of a compression of right in the back of your neck. There's an opening in your skull, and your spine can bend so far forward as if you were looking back forward, that it will push into your brain. It will push those veins into the base of your brain, and then you really start getting into trouble. But there's so much information there that's now coming forward that it's a blessing. And I see so many people suffering that I feel that I should talk about it. There's other things to talk about, I realize that. But this is very important. It hits home to so many people. Now, the roars are going to be very strong tonight, I think, across the U.S., if it's not real cloudy. And this is updated from space weather. It says the strong geomagnetic storm is underway. Strong G3 class storm is underway on April 16th as Earth moves deeper into the wake of a CME that arrived yesterday on the 15th. The storm could become even stronger. Current solar wind conditions, not just the speed, but the conditions favor intensification to a category G4 in the hours ahead. It says this CME has delivered. This is Sebastian Sanyo from Finland. It sparked a great, although not so long-lasting show on the 9th between the 15th and the 16th last night there in Finland, and you can see it here. Now, you see that red glow at the top. We talked about that when you start seeing the auroras turning red. It's greater energy penetrating further into our planet. Now, they more than likely will be redder than this tonight. And guys, they've seen them as far as Mexico before. And they're beautiful, but in certain conditions, they can be deadly. Let me say something else. Is your internet or your phone a little bit slow right now? That's another main problem with this type of solar activity, especially with that opening in the atmosphere. I'm still kind of amazed at that. I don't see that very often, or I would talk about it more often, but it's something that I would like for you guys to be able to do, because no one's going to be here forever, right? But this science needs to continue. This series of investigations and looking into the design of our universe and how it affects everything down to the molecular structure inside your body. Now let's look at Solar Ham's updates. Pretty much the same. It's got a little bit of different information. Following the initial CM impact, which saw minor G1 to moderate G2 geomagnetic storms over the course of 12 hours, conditions have quieted down primarily due to the fact that the BZ IMF component of the solar wind has been pointed north for over 9 hours. Remember the video this morning? That's until it changed. Then you'll see in the update here, everything was kind of level. It does not look like the strong G3 threshold will be obtainable. And that's what happens every time when we see these. But let's look at the update there in orange at 1545 UT. The BZ component of the interplanetary magnetic field, that's that opening, has been tipped sharply south for several hours. Strong G3 geomagnetic storming has been observed. Storming could persist for the remainder of the day, especially if the BZ remains south. Aurora sky watchers at mid-latitude should be alert once it's dark outside. And again, this could be seen very far south tonight. And if you look, let's just pull this up and look at the Aurora index. Remember, this was the daylight, which is the lighter blue, was a little more back to the right or back to the east. But now we see it moving around. Kamchatka, Russia is almost about to see the sunrise. But these K indexes right here, the KP index, past 24 hours, and look at it now. It's showing the G3. This will rise in the magnetometers, guys, if the G4 comes in. That affects ground currents, which affects earthquakes and lava. And CERN reacts to these ground currents because it's built exactly where some of the northern latitude or the northern latitude ground currents travel. And they're generated by our shields. It's as energy runs out the North Pole, the way that your compass points, it creates ground field currents. And as it enters into the planet, it creates them. And they run right across CERN, and we talked about this yesterday. CERN has got new technology, and it's going to increase in power. And if they get that running completely, the tests are already confirmed. They just haven't put it through the entire loop. Then we're going to see tremendous openings and gaps in our magnetic shield if they do that. Seen it too many times. They've taken down most of the instruments that we were reading several years back when CERN was cranking up, reaching luminosity, that showed that effect. The shields collapsing down, possibly to the satellite bands in our upper atmosphere. And that's not that high. But they were doing it when CERN was cranked up. So they took those graphs down, guys, because they were finding out that we knew. I don't even think they knew what was going to happen to our shields. But when we started looking at, when they cranked it up, watching the shields in live time or in real time, it was very obvious. Then they realized it, and they talked to, I guess, NASA and NOAA and got that information taken down with some other very important information. But they've done it with the close approach of asteroids. Once we prove them wrong, they, instead of trying to come in and correct it, they just take it down. But that's libtarded scientists. Not all are like that, but if you go against anything that they think is not normal, or what you go against what they think is normal, let me correct that, then they are going to dispute it in any way they can, block it, take away the very instruments that we pay for with our tax dollars so that we can observe some of these things. That's just how it works. Our Father in heaven will take care of all that. He will find a way to let us know what we need to know. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.